Hello, welcome back. We're working on a horror template today, and we're creating a lethal-like game, so we'll have some loot and we'll have some AI hopefully coming in today. Let's take a look at where we're at. So we've got this character who can crouch move around, he can look up and down, it moves his torch. We might add a torch mesh at some point, or we might add like a headset, maybe go a little bit sci-fi with it, a little bit SCP. And we got a bunch of other stuff replicating, like movement and the stamina bar. And we also have this health replicating as well. So we take a little bit of damage when that happens. We're going to need some sound for that, but that'll be when we get to the AI. So let's take a look at our plan. So in the last stream we did the footstep sounds, we added the sprint state energy replication, a crouch state replication with an aim offset. We added flashlight pitch, and we replicated health and damage UI UX. So today what we want to do is start off with replicating the doors. So let's go and actually look at one of those doors quickly. I think there's one up the stairs here. I feel like the stamina regen is quite punitive. Okay, so we'll get the other guy over there. In a game where you want the player to run away and then hide and regenerate their stamina, the fact that running is more punitive than standing still, I don't know, there's something weird there. Okay, so we can't see the other screen. So it seems like this is, I say, replicated with sort of an asterisk, because I think it might just be that when this gets overlapped, it plays an animation. And so let's talk quickly about late joining into a game. Let's say that you've got a server up and your friends are playing, and then you join them, and maybe you can't spawn, maybe you can, but either way you might be able to see that door. Let's have a look at how we can check to see if that door is going to be in the correct state when I late join into the game. One of the ways to do this is you go into editor preferences and you allow late joining. So allow late joining here, and now what we get is this button here. When we hit play, we'll have this which says add another client. So let's run over to the door. And so we open this door and then we add another client. It's likely that because the door probably isn't replicated, that the door is not open on our screen. Or the door triggered the overlap event when begin play of the character happened and the door is open. So that's interesting. It does work, and it doesn't really need to be replicated because the overlap event is triggering for the new client. So we could probably leave that. We don't really need to replicate that, I don't think. I don't think it's particularly necessary. You're always going to trigger that overlap as a client. So let's just put a note in here. Let's call this iterate on doors, add sound, replication not necessary. Late joiners still trigger overlap and therefore trigger the event. However, for the sound, what we don't want is that, let's say there's a couple of doors that are open. Let's say you're able to open doors manually with a button and that stays open. In that case, we would need some replication. In this case, we're not going to need it. For the sound, however, we want the sound to only happen when you're playing the game. So that when we join, we don't end up with a cacophony of sound happening all at the same time at the beginning of the round. Because you could imagine if all the doors are open and on overlap they play a sound, and you join late and you hear all these doors. Obviously they'll be attenuated and stuff, but they will play the sounds, and that will be a CPU spike on all the doors at once, doing potentially an opening door thing. So something to think about is we don't really want to add replication to something that doesn't need it, because what we could do is add replication and then multicast the door sound to everyone who's currently on the server. But that would be adding replication to something that so far doesn't need it. So there is a little trick that I've done in the past, and we'll add that to the door right now. We'll play the sound only if the lifetime of the door is more than 1 second. So we'll open this door. We will need to go to free sound to find a door. And so what we can do is, on begin overlap, we'll create a custom event. Play door sound. We'll have a little boolean in here for opening, so we can sort of do a high pitch or low pitch. So let's play that door sound. To compile this and refresh this. So this is opening and this is closing. So holding control with the execution chain will actually move. You can just move this pin while you hold control. Another cool one is if you don't want to function in your chain, you hold Shift Delete and it will retain the execution chain. I just like to remind people of these little hacks and tips. So we've got this opening sound. I don't think I'm actually on the right chat here, which is not good. Let's close chat and reopen chat here. Yeah, cool. I'm in the chat now. Hello. Okay, so compile this. We've now got this door here is able to have a little function that's on or off. And what we'll do is we'll put a branch and say time since creation. And so if I join late onto the server, I don't want all the doors playing a sound at the same time. And so I'll at least check if this triggers immediately because a player has overlapped it, let's say. And in fact, we could be a little bit more verbose with this. We could say 3 seconds if we wanted. Then we'll play a certain sound. So we'll play sound at location. That'll be the actor location. We'll select the sound based on whether it's opening or closing. And so that's a nice clean little script there. Play sound if play. Yeah, so play sound if player has been in the game for X time. Saves us replicating this and using multicast. Not particularly ideal, and you might experience some bugs with it, because if you have a slow time loading into the game, then by the time you actually load the players potentially, or load the door, let's say that took 3 or 4 seconds to load the whole level, you might actually get into an issue. So then you would replicate this and be like, you know what, we'll do this the other way. Okay, so we're there, and we're moving forward now into a sound. So let's jump over and we'll go to freesound.org. We'll search for, I guess, sci-fi door, maybe, and we'll go Creative Commons. Kinda cool. Bit too much. Bit too much. It's very electrical. That's cool. So I'd love to play this one and then play it in reverse afterwards. And so because this is Creative Commons, I don't need to do attribution. I can just download it. And we can shove it into the project. So let's get that going. Name this. I'm just going to pop open Audacity as well, which is a music editing software. And I'll reverse the sound. Okay, so we've got, let's have a look here. We've got Exif audio, we've got the flashlight audio that we made in the last stream, and now we're going to have the door audio. And this will be cool because as the AI moves around the level, you'll actually hear this happen. So first off, we've got the door sound. So that's cool. And then we're gonna alter this, and I think it's just like generate, maybe reverse. Effect, special, reverse. That'll do. Not exactly a sound designer, so we're just going to go with it. We'll save this to, oh god, how are we going to save this? We need to save this in, we'll go here, working, we'll go, there should be a templates or projects. Yeah, we'll just save it here. Door sound underscore reverse. Oh, that saved it. That wasn't good. It saved it as like some strange format. Here we go. This is what we want. A WAV. Oh, here we go. Exif templates, epic survival horror source. Cool. Yes. That's exactly what I want. Thank you. Okay, so in our source folder, we have this reverse door. We're going to create what we'll do is we'll go to our flashlight, copy this over to our door because we know it uses the close attenuation. We'll just sort of sound cue underscore door, and we'll call it door open. And we'll do another one for door close. Pop both of these open, and just bring our sounds in. So this is close. This is open. So we should be good. Awesome. And now in our door, we can select those sounds. So if we're opening, it's open. Do door close. Awesome. Let's play one player from the current camera location. That didn't sound reversed. Oh, it's still opening here, yeah. Now the door reverse sound, it was a little bit slow. In fact, all of this is very slow. What we're going to do is, well, one thing we can do with a timeline like this, and we can see here it's 0.28 seconds long. Two ways we can extend this. We can either drag this over. What I like to do is have this at 1. And then we'll just edit our curve to be the kind of curve that we want. And the timeline of this actual animation is 1. Now it's an alpha. You can see here it actually dips over 1, so we don't really want that to happen. Okay, so now you could consider this as an alpha, as a 0 to 1 alpha. And what we can do is we can take, we should really rename this. Control timeline. So we can find it in here, and then we can set the play rate to 1 divided by a duration. And so we'll say 1 second is the duration. Promote to variable, say open duration, and then we can do a closed duration as well. So let's say the closed duration is 1.5 seconds, maybe it's just a little bit longer. And now when this animation plays, it will have a slight difference to the speed. If we throw this one in here, it's based on time as well, which is, you know, handy for design because you want to be a little bit explicit about it. Okay, so we jump back to our level. That feels a lot better now. Yeah, so one way to have edited that is just to have moved the dial around for this animation. And the other way is to use this set play rate, which allows you to actually control it for a number of seconds, which is a little bit nicer, I think. So you get a little bit more control. So that's the door. Door's out of the way. So now we have this menu stuff. We've actually... I'm going to stick some strike throughs on these. I don't want to stick strike throughs on them after I've done them. Okay, so here we've already done the config edits. We've already added the plugins. Now we just need a host and join game screen. Now, I'm not going to create that on this stream. I did it in another stream recently. I'm going to copy it from the other project. So I'm just going to go and grab it. So we've got content. This is going to be a little bit messy. I'm going to have to create a folder. So when you copy assets from one project to another, you need to actually retain the folder hierarchy. So because I've got a menu widget in here, server browser, server entry, widget menu, because I've got these assets and they're nested in menu, expansion, variant, shooter, etc., I need to have the same folder hierarchy in this project to ensure that these assets are going to import correctly, otherwise they'll lose their references. We have a name setter here. That could be cool to retain the name setter. I'm not going to worry about that this time around. I'm just going to use the Steam name. And then we've got game mode for the menu as well, which would be handy. But we can recreate that quite quickly, so that's fine. Yeah, we'll take the menu asset, the server browser, and the server entry. In fact, we're not going to worry about the fact that it's going to break, because there's not too many references. We are just literally going to copy it. At least you know you can replicate the same hierarchy and you will be fine. What I'm going to do though is just add it straight to our UI here. And so if I go in now, I'll have these assets in the output log. If I jump down to the bottom of this, pop open this menu, it will immediately, it will show us some errors. I like to have the output log open a lot of the time. You can see right now it's actually loading and it's taking a little bit of time because it's probably trying to find those references. So you'll see here there's a whole load of errors. And so we'll clear the log in a moment after I fix that. So we've got the server browser goes in here. We had a widget switcher, apparently. Widget switcher has, oh yeah, so it would have been the name thing. So we'll just actually place this with child. Jump into our graph, event graph. Get sessions on the server browser yet. So if I refresh this, get sessions. Fix that. Got all this stuff that gets the player name. We've got a text commit on the name setter, so we're not going to need this because we're not going to set the name anymore. And we've got a button that's called host game, which is wrong. This button should be called quit game. That sorts us out there. We'll also need to set up an escape menu I'll note that down. Menus. We'll need an escape menu so you can actually quit the game, otherwise that would suck. If you can't just quit the game nicely after Alt F4, usually pretty sucky even for a game jam. Okay, so we've got a level here that we're going to open when we start the game, which in this case is LVL_horror. Okay, so let's double check that the server browser doesn't have any errors. Yep, this create widget doesn't know what to create, so I think this is just server entry, which it won't let us place because server entry possibly has a compilation error. Okay, so let's just clear everything and just type entry, put the session result in, put the content in, compile this, which now means this should all compile. Okay, so let's go check that. We need to make a level for the menu. So what I'll do is I'll take a little high-res shot of this scene and I'll bring that in as a UI element and just name it T_BG, and in our menu we'll have an image back here. We're going to do T_BG. That just gives us a sense of the game that we're going to be playing. And now let's go make our menu level. So UX if content, let's go maps or levels, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's funny that we always call it maps, but it's actually, they're called levels. So I'm going to create a new level, LVL_menu. And in this case, I'm going to put the game mode right here because this is going to be a quick one. So GM_menu. And pop open this menu level. Set the game mode, which I'm going to do the proper process. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So I've noticed in some of the templates that for speed, I guess, they put like their HUD creation in a class that already existed. Like, oh, we'll just put it in the player character, or we'll put it in the game mode. What I like to do is just maintain standards across my projects so that when I open a different project after a year, I know if I want to look for something to do with the UI, something to do with the character, or the inputs, etc. I know where to look. And so I am going to create a blueprint HUD, and I am going to assign that HUD. We'll call this HUD menu. I am going to assign that in the game mode because I want it to be easy to find. Oh, look at that. BP HUD horror, BP HUD menu. Cool. Look at my naming conventions even match theirs. So in this HUD, which is, you know, only for our player, we're just going to create widget. We'll create that menu. If you're using Common UI, I like to create a stack, and I might do a video on creating a Common UI stack in the future. But it's derived from the Epic tutorial videos, so you can always find out yourself. That's a viewport. And another thing that we'll need to do is get the owning player and turn his mouse on. Go mouse. And we'll need to set input mode UI only, and we'll focus this menu widget. And in order for that to work, we'll have to make sure that the widget menu is actually focusable, which it is here, allows it to be clicked on immediately. And another thing that we'll need to do is set this to false and set input to game only. When we reach our PC horror, we don't have one of. We'll just go and take a look into variant horror blueprints. We don't seem to actually have one, so I'm going to create a new folder. I like to call this folder core. So core is characters, character, game mode, etc. Actually, we do have player controller here, and we do have BP HUD. Oh, it's called BP HUD Horror because I made it. Fair enough. So we'll put these in core. And in this player controller horror, on begin play, apparently I can't paste what I just had. So set show mouse cursor to false, because we don't want that to be true. After you transition level, if the last thing that you did was enable UI input or show the mouse, that will still be relevant in the next screen. Set input to game. Input game in. Flush the inputs. Okay, so we're in the menu, we've got a mode, we've got a HUD in there. When we hit play, we'll actually see that HUD, so that's cool. Let's make sure that we're playing in standalone and that we have 2 clients. We'll hit play. What I'll do is I'll host a game here, and then I'll get the other screen to refresh. And because we copied the configs and we copied the plugins from the previous one, this should all just work fine. So now I've jumped in, we've got our 2 characters, and we're on our way. So that's our basic menu. Let's make sure that that's set up in our project settings as the starting map. So we have an editor style map, which we'll use as horror, a game default map, which we'll use as menu, and then in our advanced, the server default map is going to be horror. So if you start a server, you'll jump into the game. And that'll do us for this. That'll be fine. Okay, let's close everything else down. We have now set up our configs, our plugins, our host and join game. We're going to set up our escape menu, and then we're going to move on to loot, and then eventually mission flow, chase AI, etc. So we're on 26 minutes past the hour, or something like that. So that's pretty good. I've got a microphone in front of my clock, but okay, cool. Let's look at the escape menu quickly. So the first thing we'll need for that, and maybe I should have created my own input mapping context inside my UXIF content folder so that it could always live alongside the original template content. That would have been nice. But in this case, I am editing the default content, and I'm just going to go and do that again. So we've got default here, move, jump, look. I think we've got an IMC for horror. Take a look at that. Okay. Sprint, crouch, flashlight. We're going to add a new one for escape. Pop that in. This is going to be the escape key. Awesome. Now back in our, I think it's our core, got our player character here. We can put that IA escape. Actually, the way I like to do this, I like to do this a little bit differently. Just because this is a thing that you can do. So we create our horror widget. I'm also going to create a widget for our escape screen, which I'll go and create quickly. And then that widget will actually house the opening and closing function in the background. We'll go here, widget blueprint, widget underscore, escape menu. Put that in our UI folder here. Okay, so this escape menu is actually going to copy a lot of concepts from the original, but we don't really need the multiplayer thing. We don't really need the server browser because we're going to be going back to the main menu. So we'll just call this, so we'll keep 2 buttons and we'll just have leave game. Rename this button to leave game. This is still quit game, so that's good. When a player clicks on these buttons, something will happen. So for this one, we'll quit the game. be a new player. But that just ends it, closes the whole thing. For this one, what we want to do is destroy session for the owning player. And whether that was successful or not, we want to open level LVO on screen. So let's try that out. We need to add it to our HUD here. Escape menu. That to the player's screen or the player's viewport. I mean, the fact that they've used player screen here suggests that it might be good for like split screen. But they might be thinking about split screen, or it's just the preferred method that programmer used when he made the template. So we create the escape screen. We should always really promote it to a variable so that we can always get it in the future just by casting to the HUD. Okay, so we've got this escape menu. It's going to get added to the screen. Before we add it to the screen, I'm going to set the visibility to collapsed. The reason for this is that in the escape menu itself, I'm going to have the escape menu. And any time that you press this, in this case, we're just going to go with a quick, actually, we'll go with a branch. Anytime you press this, this is visible. And we'll just toggle the visibility. If it is visible, we'll collapse it. If it's not visible, we'll make it visible. And then we can get the owning player. And we will set show mouse cursor to, if this is visible, we should see the mouse cursor. This obviously doesn't work for a gamepad. And if I was doing it for a gamepad, I'd be using Common UI so that I could do much more easily do enhanced inputs to icons and so forth. Also, if we're visible here, we're going to do set mode UI only if we're visible, and we're going to focus on self, which again, just like earlier, means that this needs to be focusable, and otherwise we'll go game only. We do like to flush the input when we do this, so that if you are moving forward at a certain time or holding E on an interaction and you press the escape key, you do cancel those actions because we flush the input. You can do it that you go into input mode UI only, say whilst you're running, and you press the tab key to open up a slide out map. You don't want to flush the input in this case because you want the character to carry on sort of running. Good for like an FPS game or certain other games. Anyway, so that's all set up now. We'll see. So we'll hit play, host a game, refresh the server here, and while that guy's waiting, we need to actually know what the escape key is. So we have this, we don't seem to be able to press escape again. And that may be because we've gone input mode game, UI only, so we'll go game and UI. We'll push the input here. Okay. What I'm going to do is open the escape screen on this character. You can see that I'm actually still moving in the background because we are still game and UI. So one way that we can fix this is we will use UI input only. And we could say there's a function for a key being released or pressed. So we'll do pressed. We can do get key. Do get owning player enhanced input. You basically find the escape key. Get all player mappable key actions. Get action from key. I mean, you could do all this. I'm going to change how I'm doing this. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I want to do it a slightly different way. So we'll do custom event, toggle visibility on this widget. And we'll actually move this input. It's going to UI only. This still might not work. But let's try doing this in here, and we'll get Ahad. Pass that to get the escape menu, toggle the UI. So we're doing this from the player controller now, under the hopes that it still actually takes the input, even though we're set to UI only, but we'll see. Post the game, press escape again. Yeah, okay, so that doesn't work. And then we would therefore, there's other ways you could do this. So you could come in here and let's Control Z back a bit. You could allow game here, but you could disable the input mapping context. So you could just turn the input mapping context off for a moment, and then you've got to maintain turning it back on when you leave the menu. You could also do what I was doing, where I implement the key down. You could also just allow game input, but then block player inputs. So there's some settings on the player controller that's like essentially setting a cinematic mode, but it doesn't stop you from doing things like, let's say we have an action like flashlight or throwing an object, for example, or dropping an object. Those keys will actually still happen if we're a game and UI, because they'll be happening in the background. So we want to be UI only, and then we want to escape from this screen. Now if I had common UI, it would be nice, because I could actually do a triggering action from here through a button. But we're not doing that, so let's actually do the key up, or key down, sorry. Key down's nicer, because in key up you have to, it's repeat. So for key up, I think you just go get key. It's not that one. Input event, yeah. So if you're using key up instead of key down, you need to check this as repeat, because if you press escape and then the menu comes up, it's going to trigger the as soon as you let the up key, actually you'd have to do some extra coding. If you do down, because the key is down, we actually need to use this as repeat, because we do not want this to be a repeat. So only if we're not a repeat key. So here we'll just say it's unhandled. Here we'll say it's handled. Never really understood what that trickles down or up for. Some cases I've managed to use it effectively, but in these cases it's not really going to matter. So we'll go here and we'll just toggle. Do you need this to be a variable? So toggle visibility. I don't usually like toggles because they're not as explicit. That's fine. Actually, yeah, I don't like toggles because they're not great for extending. So if I wanted to do something when it becomes on and when it becomes off, I actually don't have anything that I could override in in a child class, but we're not going to have a child class of this escape menu, so it doesn't matter. So we'll toggle visibility here, and we'll also toggle visibility here. And of course, we're only going to do that if this key is equal to our escape action. What I need to do is get keys bound to the escape action if that contains, what have we got here? Make, I should say. That's not actually gonna work. Get action. Get keys bound to action. Get all player keys. Get keys bound to a particular action. That is the one we want. Get action mapping by name. That might be old input settings. Yeah. So here all we need to do is we just need to create an each loop. We need to break this. We need to ask if this is equal to our in key. Then get key. And here, if we don't find the key that we want, then we just return false. If we do find the escape key, we're going to toggle visibility and then return here. So as long as this isn't a repeat key, let's do this. Clean this up. Oh yeah, enhanced. Yeah, enhanced. Input world subsystem. Oh, come on. Mapping get. Okay, so this is the world subsystem. It's got the owning player. Enhanced input. Local player subsystem. And then you should be able to get it's player mappable input config. Yeah, this is player mappable thing. Settings, maybe? Player mappable key settings. Yeah. User, enhanced input user settings. Get mappable, get. This isn't what I want. Just want the config. Active key profile. Is that what you want? Yeah, mappable input config. We can get the mapping rows, we can get the mapping keys. God damn it. Mappable get. Do a quick Google, because that is the function we want to use. Get keys bound to action. Really? Really? Is it literally the context? It is not. Google lies. Or AI Google lies. So that's a bunch of rubbish. You'd think this would be simple. Build system. User settings. Oh wait. Let's all keys map to a specific input action in this mapping config. Maybe this is gonna work. In the event. E. Yeah, that took way longer than I'd hoped. If it was the escape key, do this. Otherwise, just return. And sometimes you'll do other things. So let's see if that works. That's okay, just escape, escape. No? Okay. So we'll hit this. Escape. Is it repeat? Oh, right, yeah. So if it's not repeat. Okay. So that took way longer than it needed to. And so we do still have an hour, so we're doing okay. It's not the end. Okay, let's do some loot. So now we're actually getting into the meat and the bones of the actual gameplay of this co-op. First I want to have like an actual objective, because obviously we're going to have an enemy AI. That's kind of a given with a horror game. I mean, you can do other things with a horror game. It doesn't necessarily need to have an AI. It can be a psychological horror where it's all, you know, graphical and audio, visual stuff with no enemies. But we're going to do an enemy because that's the easiest way to do a horror. Okay, so we're going to actually need some loot objects, and in this case I'm not going to actually bring in any artwork because I want to share the prototype online. So what I'm going to do is just get cracking. We'll jump into LVL Horror. Make sure this is one player. You can play as a listen server, that's fine. It's not really necessary, to be honest. We'll just play standalone. And in our blueprints folder, we'll create a new folder called loot. And we'll create a new blueprint class. BP loot. So that'll be cool. We'll also create a PCG that we'll use to populate loot around the level. We do not have PCG enabled. So let's go to plugins and just enable PCG. Well, there's a lot more PCG than there used to be. We just want the regular one, and we just want to pull the points out so that we can populate items around the world. I've shipped a game with PCG, so I'm just gonna take that risk. So we've got a blueprint actor. Let's just stick a static mesh in here. I tend to not like doing that, but we're going to do it. Sometimes, what if the thing is a skeletal mesh? So you just have to hide the static, I guess. Let's make this a cube. An editor cube. See it? Cannot see it. Basic cube. The right type of cube. Cube. Alright, cool. Let's see how big that is. Big enough that you'd be able to spot it. Maybe too big. Let's drag this over to our own content folder. One good thing about doing that is there's a setting in project settings when you package. Look at packaging here. It may have done it by default now, but there used to be a way to not package, like optionally not package, exclude editor content. Boop. So anything that's in an editor folder will just not go into that cook, which will significantly reduce your file size. We're just gonna leave it on because I don't want to have to deal with like replacing all the materials and stuff that are broke. Like this material, even though I've copied the asset, is like, this is an editor or an engine asset. Okay, so we copied the cube over here. We're going to need a new folder for art. The works of art here. We'll just call this small cube. Pop this in the level. I'll apply it to this actor. And what I'm going to do is jump over to the modeling tool and just shrink this down and then save the X form, which allows us to quickly play with this. So for the transform, we can just scale it down to like 0.25. And so that looks good. We'll say complete, and then we'll bake that transform. And you'll notice it's happened to our other one now. That's cool. The pivot is still good. Yep, pivot's fine. And so what we want to do is make a pretty obvious, so we'll do m_loot. Just stick a color in here. Make a pretty obvious material for this so that we can see it populated around the world. So what I'm going to do is build a loot blueprint that intentionally you're supposed to extend from and make a bunch of different appearances. Maybe I'll do it through a data table so that there's like a struct for the definition of each item, makes it easier to manage. Or maybe I'll just do it some other way, I don't know. Because you'll want things like rarity around the map. You don't want 100 like randomly 100 really good things. You want to have some variation to it. So anyway, we've got this emissive red. Gorgeous. Stick that on there. Let's have a look at that in the world. Interesting. Oh right, I dragged the cube in. So we go back to loop. Cool, so we'll definitely be able to see it. Now let's create a PCG. So we'll just create a PCG graph. It's just going to be a default empty graph. Although we could sample a volume. This is new. I haven't seen this stuff yet. Okay, so we'll sample from a volume. And so we'll do PCG_loot creator. What we'll have here is drop it into our scene. What's going on there? We're debugging something, or is... Gosh darn. Don't know what all that previs is about. Again, like I say, I haven't played with the latest PCG. That is the debug, okay. Okay. The first thing I want to do is basically not sample anything that's touching a wall. And so we sample all surfaces. It's going to be a pain. It's going to take me a while to actually remember how to use PCG. It's been a minute. I know what I want to do. I want to have a bunch of points. I want to subtract all the points that are where any of the walls are, retain anything on the inside, then just do some density manipulation on that to come out with a series of points that I then can loop through in a graph later in event graph and say, oh, I just want 5 of these. And then they're just in different locations each time, and it should be really quick and simple with PCG, but because I haven't touched it in a while, I'm looking at that and I'm forgetting how to move forward, and we could end up spending an hour on this. And in the interest of this just working, what we'll do instead is we'll actually place down a series of marker points manually, sadly, around our level. And the players will have to just go find those items. So in any kind of real video game, you would want to say, like, things, and PCG is the way you would do this. Let's say you had, like, shelves, chests, tables, and places that you want these things to be. You would maybe tag those up and then have that be how we find things. In fact, I could potentially do it again, but yeah, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it manually with markers. So maybe I'll come back after some offline PCG memory sparks, and then I'll come back and maybe do some PCG another time. Let's just delete that so that we ignore that we ever even considered it. So we have loot. Let's define loot. So we'll create a struct for that. First, it's going to have a static mesh, and it will be a soft object reference so that we can apply that. Then it's going to have a cache value, or at least a cache, I guess, range. Let's just do cache value. I think it's fine, and it will be an int. Like, we're not going to do floats for cache. And we may also have things like density, so that one object is slower to drag than another. So maybe we'll just call this drag. That will be a float. What I want to do is create a physics hook where I actually pick up the object, but that object has a lot of drag on it, right? So, and some objects are really lightweight, so they don't drag at all. You're able to just move them around really simply. Mesh cache drag, and what else might we have? Don't really need name. It's not important right now. If we did a UI where we had a codex compendium, maybe we'd have name and description. I think this is probably fine. Okay, so we'll make a data table from that. There is a question here about whether we actually do this in a data asset versus a data table. And so in this game, it's simple enough that we know we're not going to ever extend this. If we were to extend it, say we had an inventory system where we had generic item, and that item expanded into weapons but also potions, and they have different properties, then I'd use data assets. But in this case, I'm going to be using data table because I know this is explicit. It's the same for like a codex, like tutorials and things like that. The data is fairly static. You're not really going to extend from it, and you're not really intended to. It's supposed to solve one problem. Okay, so this is going to solve one problem. It's not going to be extended. Which means we can just create a data table from it. So we'll go miscellaneous data table, and we'll grab our loot definition. We'll just call this DT loot. Let us create this many loot. Let's go and change the defaults of this table as well. So this will be our small cube. Cache will just be 100. Drag, let's take a look at drag. Where's your physics? Physics will always be enabled. We're always going to replicate that physics. This object's going to be replicated. Always relevant, replicate movement, replicates. Do this here, that's all good. Back to our physics. Settings. Linear damping is like 0.01, so I'll just put that in there. That's the default damping. So everything is already set up here. And to make this easy to tell, we'll just create a series of more expensive items. And so I've just realized another thing that does go into our default definition, and that's rarity. So go back to our definition here, we'll add a new variable and call this probability. So the probability of this is 1, and then the probability of something like this 500 is a tenth of that. And then this will be maybe a fifth of that. 7 would be quite probable, maybe 5 times probable for this thing. Just go 0.7 for this. These 3, maybe 0.6. We'll go 0.5. 4. Okay, so anyway, you have a number that you can play with, and we're going to put, when we pick which item we're going to be, we're going to put all that into a bag and then put it into the scene. Now that does mean that there is a chance that you'll get a lot of good items. And so sometimes you might want a manager over the top that actually creates the bag and then systemically, steps through and puts them across the world, so that you don't end up with the situation where your random number generator has generated 6 $500 items. In this game's case, I'm not going to create a manager because I don't really. I know how I would solve that problem, and the problem that I want to actually solve is that there needs to be a game. So, and then we can iterate on it later. So probability 1, cool. Probabilities in the loot table have been updated. That's all good. We've got some loot there. Okay, so the next thing is I'm not going to worry about child classing from this. This is just going to be one thing. It gets spawned into the world. And on construction, what we'll do is we'll randomize. So we get the data table rows, DT loop, do an each loop on that, and then we get the row DT loop again. So you could have different loot tables and code this differently. if you wanted to have rare items in one table and common items in another. I'm just going to go with this. In that case, you would promote this to a variable, and these would come from the same reference. Okay, so we've got mesh. What we're going to do, probability is a float. Does that make it more difficult? I forgot. Basically, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna change that. I'm gonna change probability to be an int, and it's gonna go up in probability because that just makes it's a quicker way of doing weighting in some way in a way. So we go back to the table. We just the default's 1, so it's always 1 probability, and then we actually just make this bigger. So 1 7 7. Well, we can start ramping it down repeatedly. So 5 4 1. Okay. Back in our loop. Don't know why it's taking so long to open that loop every time. Okay, so we create an array. We don't have a row name here. What we can do is create a local variable and then just turn this into an array. What we do is we loop. This is kind of nasty, but it's a super quick way of doing it. Because you can end up with arrays that are really long. But basically, this is our pool, and we add to this pool this struct on this loop. And then afterwards we do super cheap, just shuffle and get. So what we've done is we've filled a bag with all the probabilities. So there's 10 of this and only 1 of that thing. And then we've shuffled it, and there's a chance that the first element is that rare item. So what we'll do is we'll then promote this to a variable called item data. We'll actually, because slaps to function, set item data. And as we do that, we will break this. Asynchronously load. Oh, we can't async node. Can't? Well, we'll block load. Doesn't really matter. It's supposed to happen at the start of a round, so it's not going to be too bad. Block load this, custom sort static mesh. Set our static mesh to that. Set static mesh to this mesh. And now later when we pick it up, we've still got this item data to use for the cache. We can set the drag here, so set damping. Set linear damping to this. Alright, that's cool. Okay. So we can put some loot down. We're not going to see a difference because they're all using the same mesh right now. So let's go and play with our art and just create a couple of really obvious different meshes. Let's delete that one. We'll just do rectangle. Let's do small cube, and then we'll just do small cube 2, small cube 3. How many rows did we have? 6 rows. So we need 6 different meshes. Okay. And then just model these differently. So we'll maybe just scale this one a bit longer. That's that guy. Bake that. Okay, next one. Transform this. He's going to be a flat long one. Bake that. Get this one. You're just going to be a black cube. What's that? That's that one. Okay, so we got this one. Okay, I think we're reaching the extent of what we can do with a cube. Oh, I can make a really thin. Make a really thin stick. That's cool. Maybe I could just like deform a particular. Maybe I can deform it. Oh, can I do a lattice? Look. Okay. Have a lattice. Select all these points here. Oh, I need to go to a different point of view here. So we'll go top. Grab this. Outcome. Let's do that. Let's see how that looks. Oh yeah, that's the hexagon. Cool. Did that save? I think it did. Awesome. Okay, so now we have a bunch of different meshes which we can put into our data table here. So small cube, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, ideally, we go into our BP loop, go to our construction script, and we randomize. Actually, get different items, so that's cool. Now we need some way of distributing that into our world, and so we'll have a bunch of locations where one can be, which I would have much preferred to do through PCG. Can I still do it through PCG? Is that within scope? If the only plan today is to get this loot working, and then tomorrow, we'll do the missions and then we'll do the base AI, then it might be okay. So just remember to do PCG. The only problem. Try it one more time. Really can't remember though. I don't want volume, I want surface. I think it's surface that I actually want. Sampler texture spline collision data. That would be the whole body of everything. I'm just going to go empty. Create an empty graph, please. PCG underscore loot spawner. Let's get surface sampler. Mesh. Like what surface? Like, yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. I've forgotten. Spatial. Basically, all points within the, or any meshes that are inside the volume of the PCG. I can't remember how you do this. Let's Surface sampler, PCG. Let's just take a look at some tutorial. Surface sampler. Hello, sir. Quickly remind me, how do you do this? Landscape data. That's not what I want. Oh yeah, so it's called data. Actor data. Primitive data. Cool. We want to do, yeah, track actors within bounds. Oh, come on. Did that just self at that point? Okay, yeah, not getting any points. Rub it. Any points yet? Nope. Tag none, yeah. Fair. I could tag the floors. That would be handy. Why is that no longer available? Confused. Okay, we'll call this spawnable. Copy that, we'll stick it on all these floors. So. We don't spawn on the stairs. Okay, so if we moved this, that would be our floor. Like this. What? Why? Where's it paused? What is this? Out. Why? Yeah, I mean, I know that now, so that's good. Why can't I surface sample it? Unbounded? No? Enabled? Yes, debugged? No. What's that mean? Why is it? Has it been a pain? I don't want to do that. Oh god, okay, right, D. Please, no? Nothing. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong screen here. Sorry. Doing PCG on my other monitor. Not handy for anyone watching. Okay, so I've got my primitives data here. We're doing all world actors with a tag spawnable. We're selecting multiple and then we're surface sampling on that. Now, despite having done that, we're not getting a result. Like, we force regen this, we're just not getting a result. And so I would obviously prefer do this all world actors tag spawnable. This now get any data? Don't want that bounding shape. Again, yeah, there's no... This worked, but it's like sampling. Can I... It's sampling over the full surface, which I kind of did want. Can I do an extents modifier? Let's go 0.5. There we go, right, okay. So now you can start seeing all these little dots. So that, yeah, I guess I didn't want surface sample, but now I've got them in the volume as well, right? Don't... Worried that, like, these don't have a normal. And so... Let's copy a PCG clip. There's enough forgotten exactly how to do this, but basically, yeah, you can negate these. I need to do a tutorial series on this of my own so I can remember all this. Normal to density. Yeah, so that's not working because it's a surface sample and they're all probably facing upwards. Yeah. We do surface. Surface just won't work. Probably. The reason I need the normal is because I want to test it. It's actually like an upward facing, so I don't spawn it underneath. Otherwise, I'm going to be spawning items under here. I do want to do a surface sample, please. You won't let me. Oh well. Not going to be able to do it. Tried, but I am about to give up again. Funny man, I did this like so much during one project, and I made all kinds of things, but I've like completely forgotten how you do it now. Yeah. Okay, anyway, so I'll come back with that another time. I'm going to just create a quick manager for this. BP actor, BP loot manager. And in here we'll just define how many loot we want in the level at any given time. We are going to need to be able to hit a quota. So if we have a quota and we don't hit it, yeah. So what we'll do for stats is set quota, and that will be an integer cache. We'll just promote that to a variable required cache. And so as we spawn items and randomize them, we'll take the cache off and we'll just keep going until we have the amount of cache that we needed to complete the level. And so then this will call a function for randomly spawn loot. We'll call it spawn loot. So after you've set the quota, which is going to happen at the start of the game, in this case I'm just going to call this from here, but we'll eventually call this from probably the game mode or some other place, like depending on which level you're on. So we'll set this to just 1,500. We'll then spawn the loot, so we'll get all actors tag on loot point, we'll call it. So for each loot point, but we'll do an actor of a class because it's going to be hashed a little bit better in the actor hierarchy backend stuff. So BP loot point, and then we'll just create a visual for how this looks. Just going to be a cylinder. This actor is going to be essentially hidden in game. This cylinder will create a quick material for that. M_debug, we'll call it just a quick name. Make this translucent. That on there. Strange, I thought there would be a fifth color in there, but there isn't. Can I have alpha, please? Guess not. No, it's because I haven't compared it to a front. It's on here to our level, not like that. This, yeah. So that'll be good, and then let's just make sure that cylinder is above ground. Place a bunch of those around our level. Do that. You can see why I'd rather do this with PCG. Although I at least get creative control over it in this regard. If I was doing it in a game where I had like shelves and stuff, I would definitely be using PCG to go and find like sockets or tagged points. Putting those in the world. Those become valid points for the system. Probably got to do by now. I'm just worried that there's a chance if 15 times we get the 100 gold, we need at least 15 of these, which we have 21 now, so actually we definitely have enough points. So I'm just placing down like a whole ton of points. Yeah, that will do. Okay, so in our loot manager, we're going to get all actors and class. We're going to get points. Oh, we can promote that to a local variable. While loop. It's a local variable. I current cache. Sorry, while current cache is less than required cache. then we will pick a random item from this array, get the actual location. Oh, one thing we need to make sure on the loop point is it doesn't collide, otherwise that we'll have a problem. No collision. Also, it shouldn't affect navigation or distance fields in any way. It's just a innate point. It also shouldn't tick, and neither should any of its components. Okay, so for the loop points, yeah, so we're gonna spawn an actor, just this loot, spawn it here. Could make spawn it here. We could say random rotation, including roll. Get item data. Well, because this has produced its item data on construction, we should be able to pull out the cache and just set current cache to whatever that was plus this. It's going to spawn it, and then what we're also going to do is actually promote this to a variable I point and remove it from the array. So we don't use the same point twice. We use iPoint as the reference for where to spawn it. So on the event graph, we set the quota to 1500. Okay, so assumedly now when we hit play, as long as we have that manager in the level, actually, continue to put the manager in the level. Good. Let's make sure that spawns are happening. We come in, spawn loop, we get all the actors of the loop point, which comes out 28 actors. I don't know why I'm shuffling it, because I'm just getting a random one anyway. If current cache is less than required cache, then we're going to spawn. So we do that. Oh, and then we hit. So essentially, what's going to happen, I think. Oh no, this came out at 250. Okay, so current cache, yeah, it goes up to 250, and we did spawn something. So let's change view mode. Got some lights. That looks like an item. Yeah. Change the sprint stuff, because that's really starting to annoy me. Aura FP. So when we sprint, let's go down by 10. And when we regenerate, we'll go up by 50, and we'll wait only 1 second till that recharge happens. That's way too slow. 25. Whoa, 250. That's a bit too much. There's an item, that's cool. Alright. I am here. Physics items. Whoa. Okay. We've got a couple of items there. So we did a couple of things today. We sorted out the doors, sorted out the menus, we started the loot. We got loot in random places. That's the only one that we got to. Don't know where we lost most of the time. Probably playing with PCG. We do want to have a physics carry. Let's do the cache UI on the item because we know we can do that in the time limit. So we'll create a user interface widget. So cache item. Text block. That's like probably want this to have some kind of backing, otherwise it might be difficult to see. Make sure that that has underscore UI underscore glide, like a kind of circle feel, basically. Regular opacity, user interface, translucent. Will be white. Move this down. Like that. EB underscore cache. We will next here. Do that. We could do this on pre-construct. Cache will be 50. That's how it will look. I'll color this a little. Right. Do I have any other fonts that I can use? Nice. And a meh. Does anyone ever use bold italic? I don't think they do. Just go regular. And then on the loot item, you basically have the widget component. I will dump onto here. Be generally closer to the player. You can see here how it's rendering pretty funny. And so there's a material that you can change for this. Very good to see right now. So, yeah. So we want translucent. Get this. And we want desired size. Just draws how we want. We do want this to face our player. So we might actually just draw this in screen space. We don't actually want to fill it at the beginning. We want to replicate this on rep notify for the data. Break that, create a widget. item. Inside that cache item, we actually expose cache. Then we set widget on here. And the last thing that I'm going to do for this is actually go and find this translucent widget and find the parent. Move this over to our own. Here. I'm going to add some code to it. Distance fade. Well, I would add some distance to this basically, but we're out of time, so I might just take a look to see if this is actually working as I was hoping. So randomizing the item should only happen on the server. The loot is replicated. Server sets the item data. We then put this information. So yeah, you can see all of these items, so that's cool. We've got 1500 cumulatively. And what I want to do now is change that material so that it doesn't, so that it shows in screen space as it is, but doesn't show through walls. So we'll figure that out in just a second. We'll actually have this string go on a little bit longer until I finish that. So we'll work on first the widget's position. It was like off to the right, so you can see here we've got 0.5 on the X, we want 1 on the Y. Because the object can spin and fall down, we're actually ending up with, yeah, this this element is actually moving around it, not in the way that we want. Not in the way that we want at all. What we can do is we can add a spring arm with some lag. This element in the viewport here, our rotation, we'll just say world. We'll have this above the item by 50 units. That should be good now. Shouldn't. Doesn't really work the way I wanted it to. I was hoping the spring arm with its absolute rotation would always stay like dead up no matter what the parent is doing. Doesn't seem to be the case. There's a max distance for the spring arm if I remember. You don't want to do collision tests. Don't want to inherit anything. Maybe that's enough there. lag max distance. No max distance is enforced. Okay. Good enough there. Now it's just the material. It doesn't matter in screen space. It's not going to be rendering with the material in screen space. It's going to be rendering to the screen in screen space. That's the never occluded, yeah, because it's drawn not in the world, so it doesn't have a material. We could say world. The issues I have with that is that now it needs to tick under certain circumstances. It needs to tick in order to keep it aligned to your view. And once it is in a world space, I can give it a material. I can make sure that it fades in as you get closer to it. The other thing I could do is, that might be simpler, is keep it in screen space. Maybe not have so much of a spring arm on this. Maybe it's just like 20. But this widget only displays when it's held. So we can go here, we can be like, widget. Let's be a little bit more verbose with that. Match. Keep the naming convention. Put this in a cache widget. Okay. We'll set the visibility of this to be collapsed. And we'll make sure that we have a variable of it. And then would like to do something that's like, if you're looking at it, or if you are, get rid of this timer. If you're going to interact with it, basically, so you look at an item and it would show you that cache UI. We'll have a function for whether we can see it or not. Be collapsed by default cache widget here. Let's get an animation on here for show and hide, basically. We don't need to worry about that material. That. We're going to need sort of an interaction system of some kind. Something that traces out from the player's face. Oh, cheers, man. Cheers, Peldon. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, just working through actual game dev, right? I've done it for a long time, so I'll come across a problem, there'll be 5 ways to solve it, rather than these sort of pre-made videos that might take someone 6 hours, but we'll do actually live, and then people can interact, people can ask questions. So yeah, thanks, Belden. It's promising to hear someone say that, because that's kind of the goal. It's like, let's do this together. Also, I've done it for a long time, so some things I know, some things I'm learning, and you can see the process in those cases as well. And then I'll share some of these things too, so we'll get going with that. But yeah, follow me up on I've got the bio link in the description, so subscribe to the channel, stuff like that. I'll be on every morning, Monday to Thursday. Gotta set up my schedule actually on Twitch. Gotta make sure that that's actually set up as a schedule. Okay, so we've got a randomized new var. That's not good. Did I get rid of that? Yeah, I did get rid of that. Good. Or a 4 error on the bio link. That's no good. Let's have a quick look. Oh, we're gonna look at this. Let's go view channel. Check this out. Don't want this to talk. You don't see this? Oh yeah, the Twitch one is out of date. Maybe? Is the Twitch one out of date? Yeah, I bet the Twitch one's out of date. I think I know what it is. Channel. Yeah. Alright, that should work. I updated it. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, the YouTube one's a little bit different. The YouTube one's in the description. And obviously Twitch doesn't really have a description. So the only description is the entire channel. And so yeah, cool. Thanks, man. Alright, let's get back to it. So what's I doing? I wanted to do some PCG, but I didn't really get a chance to do it, and I'm not going to sit on stream faffing around for now. I'm going to give myself another hour on this one. So we've got until lunchtime, West Coast. We were looking at the loot. We were setting up the cache UI. We want it to only show when the user is looking at it or holding it. And so we're going to need an interact component that determines what we're looking at. So let's just go create an interact component. So we've got the components folder that I made before. We're going to make an actor component, BP interact component. And this is going to line trace out of, so you can either do this as a scene component or an actor component. If it's an actor component, you're going to need to tell it where it's shooting from. If it's a scene component, you kind of get more use out of it with different games and prototypes. If you like the setup, you could use it again. Because a scene component, you can tell it like, oh, it's on the head and it's facing forward, or oh, it's from the chest, but it's a box that's this big moving forward. So I'm actually going to delete the actor component, and we're going to go for a scene component. BP interact. And we're going to go for the one that actually has a transform that we can play with. So what we do on here is we tick. We actually are going to turn the tick off. Custom event, enable tick. True. And we'll comment this as called by owner for now. Right now what I want is a system which is sort of client authoritative. If they're looking at something and they click the button, I don't care if there's a slight discrepancy on the server, in which I would fire on the server and check if there's a hit, and there's no hit, and so the user's frustrated. We're going to do it where the owner or client, in this case, does the trace, and if he interacts, he gets to pick the thing up. If someone's gonna, you wouldn't do that in a competitive game necessarily. You would do a lot more enforcement of sort of like replication checking, that someone's not, you know, gaming the system. But in this co-op game, I'm not going to care too much. The user could spoof interactions. Called by owner, yes. So here is just like do trace to interactables. Create function trace for interactables. Line trace by channel. Now, there's a couple of options here. We can either go edit project settings, take a look at our collision. We could add an object channel for interactables, and we just go through anything we want to trigger on that trace channel and set it to true. Now the problem with that is we've got this trace channel that is its own channel, and we can literally shoot through walls to hit that object. But really what we want is that our interaction trace hits things on the way. So we're not going to do a trace channel. Otherwise we'll have to do extra traces on the visibility channel anyway, or the camera channel. So we'll do a visibility trace to try and hit this object. And then, so we don't need to set up any collision channels. Additionally, if we're doing a line trace, to make that feel good, a bit of UX design is, you either want that object, say it's this cup, and I'm like tracing, and it's like, it's this little pixel hunting game of like, oh, I'm not quite on it, so it's not quite interactable. So sometimes you'll stick a box on that cup that's massive, right? And so you'd hit that cup like way ahead of time. And another way of doing it is to, instead of doing a line trace from your eyes, you do a box trace from your eyes. And so you can control the size of the box that captures interactables in the scene. And then from there, what we can do is we can say, if I'm hitting 6 objects at once, maybe I only want the one that's actually closest to my center of view to be the one that's interactive right now. So you could look at like I've done this in games with guns before. If you've got 3 guns in a row and your box is capturing all of them, just slightly turning to each one will highlight the correct one in sequence, based on which is closer to the center of view. So with all that information, let's go with this box trace method. We'll box trace on visibility, starting from the world location of this component, going in the forward vector of this component, multiplied by a float. We'll say 1,000 units for now. So this is the interact distance. Add these together. Put that in here. End. Alright, so the orientation, well, we can just do world rotation. That's good. Box half size. I'm going to do this at 20-20-20. Write that to a very fixed box size. Visibility channel, that's fine. Trace complex generally. Some debug draw type as an option as well. It's easy to debug. Actors to ignore. Owner. Don't want to hit owner. And I've already failed because it's not a multi-box trace by channel. Just control drag all of these over. Sweet. So got multi-box trace. Now we're going to go through. Essentially, we're hitting everything, and so what we want is a way to determine if that is an actual interactive object. So we're going to create a blueprint interface called interactable. And there's a couple of things that we know interactables have. They have a knowledge that they've been looked at so that they can glow. And they have a knowledge that they've been interacted with, or the ability to be interacted with. And as an interface, we're looking at like polymorphic programming design systems and patterns. So we're saying any of these interactables can implement the interact in their own way. So you might be interacting with a button, which might trigger a door. You might be interacting with an item, which needs to be picked up. And so they can all have different functions. So we use this interface for that, rather than inheritance, having an object that can be interacted with and then having like a ton of different things that are children of that, because then there's like this dependency chain that you create. So an interface saves us from creating that dependency chain and keeps the hierarchy of our project really shallow, which means the complexity of reading through it and managing it is a lot simpler in some ways. I mean, at the full studio game degree, you've got like then lots and lots of components, but it can be confusing as well. It's got 20 components on your player character that do something. But I do prefer that method of programming. What's better, an interface or a base parent class with an interact function, which is, I think I just answered that. I think I just answered that, Barabatus. Composition over inheritance is something I believe is important. Working on the pickup, yeah, I'm working on the pickup, yes. So I'm working on setting up the cache UI. When you look at the object, to show the cache UI, and then when you click, it will do something. But this will also, as an interactable function and as an interact component, be a system for the game that can be used for all kinds of things, like pressing a button to like start a level or open a door or do anything else. Oh yeah, Barabatus, yeah. So I was just saying, I'm creating an interactable blueprint interface that's going to hold the core functions of something that's interactable. So we know they can be focused, so that when you look at something, it glows, or an element pops up that says, hey, E to interact. So we know it has that focused event. So we put that in. And then we also know that it can be interacted with. And with an interface over a concept of like an inherited base class that has the ability to be interacted with, it's like, well, now you might want to have a gun come from that. You might want to have a potion come from that. You might want to have a door button come from that. Now, if everything is composed into that one parent base class, there's this like dependency, like rock that holds your project together. Whereas you could have just used an interface, and every single one of those can still be interacted with, but they are their own blueprint class. They may be extended themselves from skeletal mesh. They may be themselves extended from character. For example, if a base class actor was the interact base of your project, you've already cut out the opportunity to have revival interaction on a character, because now your character needs to somehow inherit from an actor that you've created. And so the interface is a much nicer way of composing that logic together. There's always lots of ways to do things, and yeah, it's like, what's your use case and what's the limit? Like, honestly, if I'm doing a quick games jam, I'd make some other choices. This is meant to be a quick games jam, so I'm going to actually carry on. So an object can start focus and it can end focus to undo whatever we did. An object can have start interaction and stop interaction. And so that would be things like maybe you've got like a filling timer on an interaction, for example, and you might look away and that might cancel it, or you might get killed and that might cancel it. And so we want to know what happens when you start and when you stop. So we'll go with that for starts. We said that this trace is going to be client-side only. We do want this to be a replicated component because we are going to have some server calls. And actually, I'll come back to that later. So anyway, we're looking at all these objects, and so we're going to break this and ask, does it inherit or does it have the interface? I think it's with implements. Does object implement the interface for interaction? So we've already broad phase code all of our results down immediately to the ones that we want, which we could have done through the trace channel, but we explained why we're not going to use an interact trace channel, because that means you can actually see through walls and just hit things on the other side of walls, and then you'd need to do another trace to determine if there's a wall in the way. So we're not going to do that. Let's jump over to where we were. So we're looking at this, we've got this interactable. Let's promote this to an I actor. So as we loop through this, we don't need to have wires all over our graph. We're just going to have this variable here. We're going to score the potentially multiple things in our view by its proximity to the center of our view. And so that will be a comparison of the dot product from our eye's direction to the direction to the, I'm going to use the origin of the other object. So let's get the origin or the bounds of this actor, and that gives us the origin. And from here we can get the direction. We can get the player camera manager, because we know this is running locally. Get the viewpoint. Oh, sorry, we'll just get the world location. Oh yeah, I am doing that unnecessarily. Good call. Just taking up little CPU cycles for no reason. Got my back. You can stay. All right, cool. So let's go. We're going to get the world location. We're going to get the unit direction vector from my eyes to it, or its center of mass. We're going to dot product that versus the forward vector of my eyes. And we will say, hey, if that's less than, and we'll stick a really high variable in here. Actually, sorry, what's it going to be? I want it to be closer to 1. So if it's more than, and we'll just put -2 in here as the default variable. So it's I best dot. If it's more than this, then the best dot is now this, and the best actor is And then we'll out that actor at the end as the return of this tracer interactable. So here we'll return. We'll say, hey, best actor. That's your interactable. Now that may be null. So we'll play with that after. What I need to do first, before I go like really much further, is test this code to make sure that I'm actually highlighting the one that is most central to my view. So let's go to our loot and add the interface. Settings, API interact. All that. So now in our graph we can say event start focus and event stop focus. Did I call it end focus? Let's call it start and stop to keep it consistent. Stop focus. And for simplicity, I'm just going to set a vector param on this material called color. I think that's what I called it. Made a material for this. Where is the material I made? In my art folder. Okay. I hate doing that as well, actually. Let's just take a quick look at this problem. So I've got some project. I'm building a project. I've got lots of assets that I'm going to manage. And I know that there's some shared content and there's some folder hierarchy that I want to go with. Now, some projects like to go horizontal, where they put all their art in one place. So like all their materials. They have like a material library that a tech artist might maintain. And then a bunch of blueprint stuff. They'll have a bunch of audio stuff, like a whole audio folder that's just all the audio for the game. So maybe the audio department lives in there a lot. And what I don't like about that is if I go to look at the loot and I want everything, really what I want is everything to do with the loot. But I'm not getting everything to do with the loot because I've decided to put my art in a separate folder. And so what I'm going to do is actually go vertical, and I'm going to put the art for my loot in the loot folder. And now I've got, I could organize this a bit better, but at least I know that I can look directly at my loot and get the material that I wanted. So that's just a little bit of management. Yeah, so I did call it color. So let's change that now. We've got color, we're just going to change it. So we've got linear color. So color to vector, yeah. We're actually going to need to steal the origin color. So let's make this something obvious like 0.900. Okay. So we'll go 0.9. And then we're going to, so that's when we stop. We're just going to set it back to default. This is just for testing, by the way. This isn't how it's going to be. And we'll just do this as white, I guess. And then code in our interaction component the change to that. So we're going to trace for an interactable. And then we'll set our interactable. So current interactable. This is just an actor class because it can literally be anything. And we do two things. Before we set it, we ask if we already had one. There's a couple of things that we do. We want to call stop focus on this under some circumstance. And we want to call start focus on this under some circumstance. And I guess the first thing we would do is check if the inbound is different. Because if it's not different, then we've already done the actions that we want to do. If it is different, so I'll just actually throw this here so that we see what's going on. We trace for an interactable, we get a best result, we set the interactable. If it's not different, then we're just looking at the same actor. If it is different, then we ask if we already had an interactive one, we stop focusing it because we're now looking at a different one. So that will set that one back to its defaults. And then for the new one, we're going to call this new interactable in here. Set current interactable to the new interactable, and then we're happy there. We start focusing, assuming it's actually valid, because it can be the case that this comes in with no result, and so now at least we stopped focusing on the last one. And so in my level, I'm going to stick 3 of these down in front of us. Go to the loot, stick 3 random loot down. Okay. It would help if I actually put the component on my character, because if you don't do that, then nothing's going to happen. What time are we on? About half an hour. Let's add our interactable component here. What I'm going to do is... how are we going to do this? We're going in the interaction component. I'm actually not going to have a function for this. We're just going to have beginning play. We know that the owner is a character in this case. And maybe this is making some assumptions, but we're going to go with it. This kind of bolts it to being used on a character. You couldn't use it on just a pawn. So we're not going to, yeah, we are actually going to go with the other method. We're going to go with this so that this interact component is a little bit more agnostic. Let's say you were making like, I don't know, a game where you're like a god character. Well, you're not going to have a character class as your character, you'll have a pawn. And so we'll go with this, and then in our first person horror, we will just need event pawn, or event receive controller changed. Event receive controller changed here. And so what we can do now is ask if the new controller is valid. And if that's local. Then we can tell our interact component that in this case comes from our first person camera. To enable tick. So we're the only person that's interacting with this. Okay, so now we can test if, hopefully. Let's go and debug that. So we did expose some variables for this. So let's just do a 1 frame show me the box. So when I get two actors in the box, it would be the one that's closest. Yeah, so that's not actually working. And it's like, I think it's the opposite. For the dot product here. So what we can do is just do this backwards and see if that immediately fixes it without doing too much extra debugging. Is it not reporting anything here? Definitely hitting. Definitely hitting. Interesting. Oh, huh. Right. So I forgot to null this out. So when you looked away and weren't looking at anything anymore, and then you looked at exactly the same one again, it would come in and just do nothing because it never got cleared. New interactable is false. Clear current interactable. That should solve at least one problem. Cool. Now I'm hitting 2. Yeah, so now you can see, like, as I move just between the two, I get the right one highlighted, which is nice. Why am I not? Oh, I'm not hitting that. Oh, that's interesting. So my box trace is hitting the floor and stopping me from hitting an interaction on. Because that shouldn't be true. Should still be hitting that. How many hits do I get? I get one. So yeah, that's a problem with multi-box trace. It actually stops when you get a hit, which means it's not actually doing it for every object in the view. So yeah, 1,000 units might also be quite long. I think I set this to like a 1,000 unit range, which is only 10 meters. Best viewers on Boost Inbox. Tell me if that quick action that I just did actually did anything to the stream chat, where there was some sort of like random person just come in saying something. It should, on my chat right now, it's gone. And obviously I'm new at streaming, so if anyone's watching, there was a random ad bot. Nope, still there. Sweet, that's awesome. Well, they're blocked, apparently. I can't really do much else from here. Would you happen to know how you convert multiple meshes into a blueprint, please? Yes. Multiple meshes. So answer me this. Is it multiple meshes that you want to be components in one blueprint, or do you want to merge all those meshes together into one single mesh and then put that in your blueprint? Yeah, I'll do it in this blueprint here. So you just hit the add key here. In the top left of your blueprint, you just type in static mesh. And so I can make that, let's say this was a wall. What's going on right now? Oh, it didn't actually pick the cube. Awesome. Right. So let's say I've got this wall, I'm making a room. So you can either Control D to duplicate, and then you can go and mess with it, or you can just add another static mesh. Or like another way. Why is it? Yeah, so that again, it doesn't have a mesh by default. Cool. And another way of doing it is when you open up the palette, you can, I don't know, let's go find an art. You can drag, say, this prism like directly in, and so you'll see it here. I've got, I think it's this one. Yeah, so you can just drag it into your blueprint, and so you can do all kinds of things for that. Have them all positioned in the world outliner. Okay, cool. Yeah, so let's say I've got, this may not work very well, and it may not be the best practice for turning a room into a blueprint. You might want to use the packed level actor for rooms, and so go take a look at packed level actors. That might serve your purpose a bit better than a blueprint. But let's say I've got 4 like this. Maybe it's got a little door in it. Okay, so I would click and select on all of these, and then in tools, I think, or actor, convert actor to static mesh. Well, I think one thing I could do is just copy that and then go and drop it into my blueprint. And didn't really work. So another thing we could try, there is a way to merge this basically. So it's under some sort of merge operation that I'm failing to, there we go. See merge 4 actors down here at the bottom of actor. So you can either merge the components into a single mesh, no simplification. It will just generate a single static mesh and bake down textures. Simplify, merge the source actor meshes and do another, yeah, so that's similar. Batch, it will use a HISM to do it. Approximate, I mean the HISM one is probably the one you want, right? Because if you're using the same walls over and over again, what will essentially happen is, yeah, you'll create a hierarchical instant static mesh to optimize out the duplication of some of that. So we could batch this. So it created something. Now we've got this actor. Apparently, allegedly, we have an actor. Might not have helped that I was in. Yeah, so I don't actually see even a pivot for this guy. So this is broke now. I can't do anything with that actor. Right, cool. Now we're back. Actor, merge actor settings. I want to batch this. The actor class to use is actor. Could create a new blueprint for this. So let's say we create a new blueprint just called like BP room with an underscore, because we're not heathens. So now we've got this new BP room. It's just popped up. So we'll merge this down. So now, back in our level, we have this guy. With this BP room here, we could create a child blueprint class of room. And so this will be room underscore 1. So now we're looking at an instanced thing. Yeah, so it's a combination of the actor merge tool, creating a blueprint, and then clicking on it and going down to this graph here and creating a child blueprint class and then naming it. I want to find the parent class for this because I don't actually want that in my library. In root content. This is in engine root content. That's a terrible place for that to live. Okay. So when I was interacting, I had this problem where I always forget this, but basically box trace, it might be harder in 427. Hell yeah. Yeah, it's going to be hard in 427. Half of that stuff definitely doesn't exist in 427, for sure. Oh, it seems harder than it was in 427. Yeah, you used to just be able to right click, go to like, I think it was tools, and then there was just like merge, like right there. But also it didn't have like all the options in 427. Like there's a lot more options now. Yeah, okay, we've got this problem we want to solve. We've got 17 minutes to do it. And so on box tracing, I always forget that it doesn't do it the way I thought, which is trace, hit every object in the trace so that I can then do some comparatives. Which is annoying as heck. Is that really what's happening? Let me check one more time. Let's definitely get like multiple of these guys in here. Yeah, we're only getting one return. No longer tracing complex either. Basically, this will also not work. Even if I had an interactable trace channel, it would still only hit the first interactable item on the trace channel. So let's do a quick Google, because I'm not the only person that has this problem. So let's go. I should probably not put that over there. Let's go multi-box trace all. I could just do a box overlap, just in a direction. UE5. Yeah, convert to blueprint, yeah. Multi-box with trace objects over tick. Yeah, that's not great. How can I multi-box trace objects return multiple things? Yes, exactly. Good question. I like this person's question. I love this answer. How can I make multi-box trace by objects return multiple hits? Like, is there a method for getting multiple hits? And the first response is, that's not how it works. It just returns the first one. And then the response from the original poster is, that's why I asked the question. That's why I asked the question, sir. Is there another way? How can I do this? Box trace by channel. Yeah, so I mean, we can do box overlap. Box overlap actors with orientation, and then that gives me actually all the actors, and so then I'm not even and now we're looking at object type, and do we want to do interactable object type? Not really. Actor class filter, not really. But let's go with this. And so the math for the box position is going to be a little bit different, but the orientation will be the same. So the box position this time is going to be half the Z added to here. So now we don't really have distance, we just have like the Z of the box size is the distance, and we're just gonna move this box that far, so the box starts at my eyes basically and moves forward. I've built an interact component like this in another project of mine. I've built it in basically every project I've ever worked on, but I built one that had an offset with it as well, so you could actually just choose the offset, which was nice. So we're going to start the box position here, and the box extent is just trace box size. We're just going for actor. And we're just going to go each. And then we're going to ask if it implements, and then we're going to promote it after we know that it implements. We're going to go down here. Object types, great. It has to have an object type. That's wonderful. That really is not great. Well, let's just go world static, dynamic, and pawn, because I know I'm going to be reviving people at some point. Okay, we'll go with that. Can't really debug this very easily because I don't. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, trace box size, the Z value is now the length of the trace, so we'll just go for 1 meter. No, it needs to be 2 meters at least. Like, it sucks otherwise. Well, now we're not. No, we're definitely not hitting anything. Can I debug box? What a debug box. The center is this location, and this is the extent. And the line is red. This is the rotation. Duration is 0.1. Thickness of 5. Pop that right there. Ah, yes. What am I talking about? P50 in the X. There we go. We hit a PCG volume. I can't believe that's still in the level. And then we don't return anything ever because we're experimenting with different methods. So let's do that. So why aren't you working? There is no best actor. You hit 3 actors. What actors did you hit? The root is a static. The static is a cube. Right. They all need to generate overlap events. Oh, it's a physics actor. It's the one I didn't choose in the array of this that I was upset about having to set up. So there we go. Yeah, we actually hit one. Do. Okay, so maybe my math was right the first time and it was just a misunderstanding. Right. I knew I had my math right. I always forget that this multi-trace doesn't actually do a collection of multiple objects. The stick. Let's get rid of all of this. We don't need this distance anymore because that doesn't really matter. Let's stick all of our code up here and then we'll get this debug here onto. If we choose 0, does it just not debug? That would be great. No, it's just permanent. Okay, we'll do a sequence. We'll return at the end of the sequence and we'll do a branch. Turn this into a bool. We'll just call this raw debug. We're doing that. Take all of this. This is a little bit prone to error because if I change this left side and don't change this draw debug, then we'll have a problem. Don't worry too much. Nice. Something like that. Okay, cool. Gaia trace. Next is clicking on it. So we don't have an input action for that. How long have we got now? 7 minutes. So let's set up an input action for that. IMC underscore horror. We're going to create another action. Duplicate this. IA interact. Save that. Add it to our input mappings. It's going to be the left mouse button. I'm going to see if it works from here. IA interact. Current interactable. Valid. Interact. And then if it's valid, when it's cancelled or completed, we'll do stop interact. And over in our loop, we'll add event start. Oops, event start interact. Stop. I actually code the main bulk of this in another episode. Start, stop. Yeah, I should probably turn that debug off. It is off. Ah, that would be why. Click, 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 click. In. Oh, cool. So that's happening as I wanted. Is it going to be multiplayer? Yeah. So what we're going to do now is instead of, I think it's in the title, right? Like I'm making, I mean, maybe the Twitch restream title didn't work, but yeah, this is called creating a lethal like. I guess it's not very clear. In the last episode, I called it adding co-op to the 5.6 template. So yes, in fact, I can show you, if you go to YouTube, there's yesterday's video where I started this project. But I'll show you quickly. In fact, I'll show you it from the menu. So in the menu, we have two characters standalone. We hit play. Lethal, yeah. So Lethal Company is this co-op game where a group of players are tasked with collecting valuable items from a procedurally generated level, and that level is filled with monsters, and their goal is to collect enough of the valuables to meet a quota, otherwise they lose. And that's pretty much the crux of it. Yeah, and so from Lethal Company came other inspired projects like Mimesys that you might have seen this Steam Next Fest. Repo obviously had an inherent inspiration at some stage along development. And they also have, like, there was a game where you played as a bunch of goblins. It was called like the Goblin Pit, and you were a bunch of goblins that had to collect food for your goblin god, and if you didn't get enough food, then you also got killed. I've got an idea in mind of a Lethal Company like game that me and my wife came up with based on a TV series that we really enjoy. And so maybe one day I'll work towards doing that game, but that's not horror. So that's going to be like a lethal action adventure. Yeah, so I just hosted a server on the left-hand side of the screen. If I refresh now, we'll get this side here. Then we've got our crouch. We've got some head rotation stuff where our flashlight moves, which is cool. We can spin because that is completely intentional, including the offset. But anyway, so we can sprint. We've got a little sprint bar at the bottom. That's also all replicated up. Today we added like a sound on this door, which is cool. So when we do have an AI walking around, if you hear the whoosh, you're going to be like, oh, is that a friend or a foe? We added like the random placement of these items today as well. We've also got some stuff like taking damage is set up, but obviously nothing really damaging you right now. You can see your health in the top left goes down. And then I would like to do VoIP, but it's one of the hardest things to test because you literally need 2 people on call whilst digging through the problem. So probably not going to do VoIP, even though that is a cornerstone of this genre, is the immersive experience. So for the template that I give out, it probably won't have VoIP, and then I might do a stream where I'm like, and here's me doing VoIP. Or I might do a video where I'm like, I spent 12 hours fixing VoIP. VoIP is notoriously one of the worst things to work on. Just one of those things where it works on my machine. Works on my machine. So we actually ran out of music. We've been going that long, which I have to remedy because I can't work without vibes. There we go. So finishing off this interact component, when the user interact from user RPC to server. I spoke earlier about how I'm not worried in this co-op game if someone spoofs this RPC, that it's going to be client authoritative basically. And there's no server-side check for whether their face is hitting a certain object. Because I've experienced it enough times in the past where like, oh, there's just some good discrepancy, and so the client and the server aren't actually looking in the same direction, or for some reason they can't interact with it. The ragdoll of the player is slightly different location to where it was on the server, and so what you would typically do with an RPC is check that on the server all the conditions are also met to ensure that like someone's not firing that off at spoofed, cheaty sort of times. But I'm just going to go straight up for like server interact. And we'll send, so we'll do server start interact and we'll do server stop interact. So server start, server stop. The way you do this is you make a run on server reliable call. So we want this to be reliable because it's not cosmetic. If it was cosmetic and therefore potentially ignorable, then we're not going to run it. Reliable just ensures that it definitely goes through at some point on the stack, I believe. Or just retries over and over. Someone told me the other day, just retries until it succeeds. So instead of doing this here, oh, we're also going to need to actually send the target. Because like I said, the server doesn't know. So that gets cancelled down into like some sort of hex ref thing that's like a really short string. That's optimized obviously to send over the network, and so from there we would do this. I guess one thing that you would check is, you know, does this object actually exist? Because it may have been destroyed in that time, so it is good to at least do that. Okay, and then so here we would do start interact, server start, and we would do server stop. And there is a need at some point in the future to essentially stop interact if you look away from the object, but we're not going to do that right now. So now this is happening on the server. Let's do something over here. Start and stop interact. What I like to do as well is actually call this. I actually like to multicast this, because I want every other client to also know that you started interacting with something, because it might be the case that like a wheel turns or a lever starts coming down. I want everyone to know at that moment in time that that interaction was occurring. And if I need to manage some state for like late joiners and stuff, I'll do that separately. So let's make sure that everyone knows about this custom MC multicast start interact. And so you call this a multicast here. So basically we're daisy chaining a little bit, but it's okay. It's the way it has to be done. And then we get MC stop interact. So multicast sends it from the server to all connections. And also kind of typically what we would do is we would want to start interacting on the client side here. So it happens immediately the moment you press the button. You get like an immediate feedback so that it's not delayed based on the net latency. But then what will happen is if I then multicast the interaction, I'll tell you what, yeah, we'll multicast the interaction and it will happen a second time. But what we'll do, we'll grab this for the stop interact, make sure that that's correct. We will get rid of these and we'll do MC interact start. We'll compare, we'll check if we're local basically for the multicast event. And so we'll do a branch here. And we'll just say essentially is tick enabled is a good one, I guess. Let's do init owner. We'll call this function instead. And so now over on our horror character, we've got init owner here. On our interact component, we're just going to set a bool called is local. So all that's telling me is just caching the information that this was the one from the local player. And if that's true, we don't need to call this a second time from the latent RPCs and multicasts that come through the network. And all that means, again, is that I can actually call start and stop over here. In some games, and again in this game even, I may want to not do this because it may be the case that the server has like an updated function or property that's not up to date on my end, and so I might need to change this again. Hey Undead, over on YouTube, thanks for jumping in. I'm actually at the end of the stream today, so check out the VOD. We've done a bunch of stuff, and I'll finish up this loot thing and I'll show you where we got to. Then I've got to go back to work for the rest of the day. So when we start interact, all I was going to do here was like on the authority, so on the server we do one thing, and on the remotes we can do something else, or both sometimes. But in this case what we'll do is we'll actually just add an impulse to the static mesh. Oh, one thing about this widget as well, I always forget this about these widgets, they have collision. Turn the collision off. No collision. Don't generate overlaps. Right. That's the cache widget, which the entire point of this interact system was to actually set the UI visibility to true and false. So let's actually stick that on over here. So that's for the focus. Start interact, we'll just add an impulse and say like random unit vector multiplied by a float of like 10,000 maybe. We'll do a velocity change on there. And stop interact doesn't need to do anything. We've still got our 2 players, so we'll hit play. Oh, right, yeah, sure. Forgot that I was doing that. Whoa. What's going on there? Never happened to me before. Post game. It's better. I think I know what happened. I think I spawned on this cube and just yeeted into the sky. Wow, whatever that is bright. Is that the moon? Oh my god. Don't look at the moon. Yeah, cool. Alright, so click. Click, 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 click. Let's see if that's actually going through. It is not. So let's see if this one's going through. Whoa. I'm going to assume. Yes. It didn't debug though, which is like LVL horror. Let's just go 500. There is something blocking me right here. Oh god, it's the room. It's the room we made. It's somehow still in the world. Oh my god, the little demo thing was about to just like ruin my day. God. Room? Cube? These 4 cubes? Yeah, let's delete that. Ghost room, yeah, it's been there for like half an hour. I didn't even realize. Okay, so random vector, boop. So that's, oh, these guys are standalone, so it's obviously going to work. I need to check it on the listen server to see that this actually RPCs through. Oh, and the reason this won't work is because I never set this component to be replicated. So now that that checkbox is true, all these RPCs will actually start to work. Character has fallen out the map a second time, so let's go and fix the map. We should probably not have a spawn point spawning players directly on top of physics objects. So we'll just move that and we'll make 2 spawn points. Okay, so that was the server clicking. This is the client clicking, and it's still not working. So let's go debug it quickly over here. We've got the FP interact component. It does replicate. When I click, I get an interactable. I start on the server, and as long as it's valid, I'm going to MC that. And if it's not local, we can do all this stuff. That was the point of that function. Click, click. And this guy can also do it. And so next up in another episode, what we're actually going to do is make this attached to a spring arm of some kind on the character, or like a physics arm. One thing I have noticed is that the whole reason of creating an interact system, or the reason that we started doing it, was because this cache UI needed to be set up. And so set visibility to non-hit testable. And here what we can do is, well, maybe it should always be hit testable. Do this on event construct. I'm going to play this hide animation like off the bat so it hides it, but then it's going to be visible to everybody. I don't know what's the best thing to do here, but I know that at least when I when I hover on this thing, it needs to become visible. So let's just start with that. It's not doing what to do. Go one player. Just debug this. Go. Where's the animation? Show. Is it just going to repeat? Okay. So, right. Back to the loot. The widget is not set. Find the references to this. Set the cache widget. Init the cache widget. Stick it on, collapse it, but set it. Is that actually happening? Cache widget, yeah. It does set up the widget. Why can't I see it? I'm going to assume that because I'm setting it to invisible at the beginning, that it breaks somehow. Oh, right. Sure, it doesn't work on these ones, but it does work on all the other ones. Of course, there's a difference between these three guys. Why? Don't like you. You three can go away. Go find a cube. Ow. There's one in here. No. Well, the good news is I can't see all the cache through the walls anymore. It's almost 300. That's kind of cool. And then you would obviously pick it up. This guy just has like butterfingers, so you can't quite manage to pick up the thing on the floor. It's just like I just need to collect it, and then somehow we've deleted it from existence. So I guess it's behind that wall now. Yeah, cool. All right, well that's us. So we can't jump off ledges. Yeah. Yeah, we're getting there. That was a long one. Let's jump back to our thing here. So we didn't quite get this. We did get this, and obviously we haven't done any of that, so that's fine. And then we're going to do some mission flows, some hub stuff, some down but not out stuff for reviving a friend, all these kinds of bits and bobs. I'll also want to iterate on obviously the interaction appearance. Right now it's just like everything is glowing. Can't really see the object. But I do have some outline stuff. Don't really need don't need the color change. It's implied by the appearance of the cache that this is now interactable. Yeah. Have an object. What one? There we go. Yeah, so it's kind of implied that I can pick it up when the cache turns on, so I don't really need the glow. All right, well, we're done. If anyone wants to see more of this kind of project, or different type of project, or different template, or a template from scratch, or a games jam that's coming up that you want to see me do, or you just want to list questions and I'll do like a answering questions stream, then please go ahead and like comment, subscribe to the various places, and and ask those questions, or jump in the Discord and things like that, and we'll get chatting, we'll get building. So I'm here to demystify sort of like rapid prototyping to some degree in Unreal Engine, and in this case in multiplayer in particular, and sometimes in tech art, and sometimes in game design, sometimes in production. Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Barabatus and Peldon and Undead for joining. I'm sure Zero to Game is around, hiding in the shadows, lurking. Yeah, lunchtime for me. So I'll see you guys if you want to join again tomorrow morning. And so it'll be like 9 till 11 usually, sometimes 9 till 12 if we're having fun. Yeah, see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining. Don't know why my chat's taking so long to go through, but yes, Peldon, I do want to know ideas on how to improve the stream.